At just 19, she was sold for a cow, but fate led her to a lone mountain man who treated her like a queen and changed the meaning of love forever. The sun was sinking low over the fields, painting everything in shades of gold and dust. The laughter of men and the low sound of cattle echoed from the farmyard. A young woman stood silently near the gate, her wrists trembling slightly as she clutched the edge of her faded shawl. Her name was Mara, and this was the day her father sold her, 19 years old. Soft-spoken and kind-hearted, Mara had always been the quiet one in her family, the girl who dreamed of stories, of freedom, of love. But dreams didn't feed hungry mouths. Her family's farm had fallen into ruin, and her father, desperate to keep his livestock, struck a cruel bargain with a neighboring man. 1 cow, he said, for the girl, and just like that Mara became part of a transaction. No wedding, no farewell, just a trade. The man she was sold to was old and harsh, a farmer with more temper than mercy. He treated her like property, barking orders, denying her rest and laughing when she cried. For months, Mara endured. She milked cows at dawn, gathered wood in the rain, and slept in the cold corner of a barn. But her spirit, though bruised, refused to die. She often looked toward the mountains rising in the distance, wild, beautiful and free, and whispered, if I could just get there, maybe life would start again. One night, when the moon hung full and silver, she made her decision. The old man had gone to the tavern. His snores would not echo that night. She wrapped her thin shawl tighter and fled. Her feet bled from the stones, but she kept walking, guided by the light on the peaks. The mountains were cruel to those who entered unprepared. The wind howled like a living thing, and snow fell even though it was spring. After 2 days without food, she collapsed beside a frozen stream, her body weak and trembling. She whispered a prayer she barely believed in. That's when she saw him. A figure moved through the snow, tall, broad, with a thick coat and a hood pulled low. He knelt beside her, brushing snow from her face. "Hey!" His voice was deep and calm. "You're freezing!" She could barely speak. "Please, don't take me back." He frowned, confusion flickering in his eyes. "Back to where?" "Anywhere," she whispered, eyes closing. "Just not back." He lifted her gently in his arms, as though she weighed nothing. "You're safe now," he murmured. When Mara woke, she was wrapped in thick blankets beside a roaring fire. The cabin around her was made of logs, sturdy and warm. The smell of stew filled the air. A man sat nearby, stirring a pot. "You're awake," he said without turning. "Good. I was starting to think I'd found a ghost." She blinked, disoriented. "Where am I?" "In the mountains," he replied. "My home." "Name's Rowan. Why did you help me?" she asked softly. He shrugged. "Because no one else would." Over the next few days, she regained her strength. Rowan wasn't like anyone she'd ever met. Quiet, strong, but gentle. He spoke little, but his actions spoke for him. He fixed her a room near the fire, gave her warm clothes, and made sure she ate. When she tried to thank him, he only said, "You don't owe me anything." Still, guilt lingered in her heart. "I have nothing to give back," she told him one evening. He looked at her then, his grey eyes steady. "You're alive. That's enough." Spring melted into summer, and the cabin came alive with color. Mara began to help, sweeping, cooking, tending to the small garden. Rowan taught her how to chop wood, how to fish in the cold streams, how to read the sky for weather. Slowly, she began to smile again. Sometimes they'd sit on the porch as the sun set, and he'd tell her stories about the mountains, of eagles that soared so high they touched the clouds, of rivers that sang when the wind was right. She listened with her heart, feeling something she hadn't felt in years: safety. One evening, as she sat by the fire, she asked quietly, "Why do you live here alone?" He stirred the coals, eyes thoughtful. "Because the world down there took everything I loved. My wife, my home, my peace. I came here to start over, to forget." She said nothing for a long time. Then she whispered, "Maybe we both came here to start over." He looked at her, and for the first time she saw warmth in his gaze. Not pity, but something deeper. The next morning she found him fixing the roof. When she offered to help, he smiled faintly. "Careful," he said. "You'll make me used to company." And for the first time in her life, Mara laughed, a sound so pure it startled even her. Months passed, and with them came something neither expected: peace. Mara had turned the cold, lonely cabin into a home. The once silent halls now carried the sound of her singing, the clatter of dishes, and the warmth of laughter. Rowan had built walls around his heart long ago, but slowly those walls began to crack. He noticed the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about the wildflowers on the ridge, the way she thanked the morning sun every day, even after all she had endured. She was light, something he thought he'd never see again. One evening, as the first snow of winter began to fall, he found her standing outside, her hair glistening with frost. "You'll catch cold," he said, handing her a blanket. She smiled softly. "It's beautiful. I used to think the world had no beauty left for me." "It always did," he said. "You just needed to see it from up here." Her eyes met his, and in that silence something passed between them, quiet, certain, undeniable. The next morning Rowan carved something out of wood. When he handed it to her, she gasped. It was a crown, simple, hand-carved, delicate. "What is this?" she asked, tears brimming. He smiled faintly. "Every queen deserves a crown." From that moment on, their lives intertwined completely. They shared everything, the work, the laughter, the storms. And though Rowan never asked for her past, she told him anyway. She told him about her father, the man who traded her for a cow, the months of pain, the nights of tears. When she finished, Rowan said quietly, "He may have sold you, Mara, but up here you were never bought. You were found." Years passed, and the cabin became more than a refuge. It became a kingdom built on love, kindness, and quiet strength. They planted orchards, raised animals, and watched as the valley bloomed. Mara began teaching the children from nearby settlements how to read, how to believe in better futures. People started whispering about the woman in the mountains, the one the world had cast away, but who now lived like royalty, loved by the man who had given her the life she deserved. One summer evening, as the sun dipped low and the valley turned to gold, Rowan took her hand. "Do you ever think about them? The ones who hurt you?" he asked. She looked out at the horizon and smiled. "Sometimes, but not with hate. If they hadn't sent me away, I never would have found this life, or you." He nodded, pulling her close. "Then maybe being sold was the price fate had to pay to bring you home." The mountains glowed with light, and the sound of wind carried through the trees, soft like a blessing. Mara closed her eyes, feeling his heartbeat against hers. Once she had been sold for a cow. Now she was loved like a queen, and in the quiet strength of the mountains she found what no gold, no power, no city could ever give: peace, belonging, and the kind of love that no bargain could ever buy.